I'm going to quickly go over our resource base. Are you going to adjust it?
Just talk over it.
Okay. And some of our experiences with holistic management. I grew up on the ranch. I came back in 2003, and we moved back full-time to the we lived in the region, we were ranching. We came back full-time to the family ranch in 2007. That's actually, we have twins, and so that's us right when we moved back. That is sort of the ranch under management. It's a combination of timbered rangeland. I'm not technologically sophisticated enough to get the boundaries in, but I'll point to it. Oh, I guess I have, there's this. Which one am I not supposed to touch?
Laser fingers, that one.
Okay, so that's our house right there. Here's the irrigated acres that we run on there. We call that kind of our prairie type open ground. This is one of our projects right there. Looks a lot better than that now. And then this is the timbered rangeland that we run on sort of all through here. We have, I grew up in the Hereford registered Angus business, going to a lot of bull sales. So we still have our base cow herd that is descendants of that same registered herd. And then we have what we call a grass-fed, because it's basically anything from weaning time to finished, which for us is about 1,100 pounds. And we do direct sales. We have a 6-month-long season. So our, quote, grass-fed herd is a lot of different classes of cattle, often all running in common. This is, I touched the wrong one. This is Salvador. We managed a ranch for an absentee owner, and Salvador worked for us then. When we moved back to the family ranch, he came with us. He is amazing at temporary electric fence. And so that's our family and some of our timbered rangeland. And one of the things that we do when we think about our enterprises, in our direct sales, there's an education component. We finish everything on grass. We sell everything in the animal, and we do that in part by cow shares, which is great, and I'll show that slide next. But to our institutional customers and our restaurant customers, there's a huge education component, and we also have a seasonal product. And so we have a lot of chefs come out to the ranch. I spend a lot of time talking to chefs about what we do, helping them understand why it's different. So this is us in the local butcher shop. You can't tell, but that's one of the chefs from Top Chef Masters. So it's a fun part of what we do. I'm not sure, as Cheryl talked about, getting the most bang for your buck. I'm not sure if that's it, but here's our cow share program. We do about 75 head a year. Our wholesale program's this past 2012 was about 400 head into institutional customers. It's not all raised by us. We work with a couple other Walla County ranchers. And the cow share program is how we started out. And we have held that constant for the last few years at about 75 head. So this is one of our deliveries. This is, these guys are arguing over a steak, who gets like the odd steak. Our holistic goal, so we're relatively new. I was really actually thrilled to hear Richard Teague talk about that it takes 10 years to, you have to evaluate over a 10-year period, because I feel like that's good news for us. I feel like we're relatively new to holistic management. We've seen tremendous change since we've adopted some of these principles and tried to incorporate them into our lives. We took our first holistic management class from Tony Malmberg in 2008. Where's Tony? Was it 2008, Tony?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And Tony and Andrea have been really helpful to us ever since. Before that, we were exposed to some of the ideas in holistic management when we took Ranching for Profit School. So this has been something that we've continued, and the big thing that wasn't included in the Ranching for Profit curriculum was this idea of the holistic goal. And I always think of it as kind of your guiding star. You know, you don't have to always be walking towards it, but if you know where it is, it's just an incredibly helpful reference point. So these are some of the things that we feel like have changed in our life based on at least writing down our holistic goal. I think this is the first thing that was a huge paradigm shift for us, and I'm sure that a lot of other people can empathize with that. You know, there's a lot of talk on, you know, what's your weaning weight, what's your what's your gross revenue on something, how much did you get for those calves, instead of were you profitable? Did you achieve what you wanted to achieve? I think the other stuff on there is pretty straightforward. Another thing that's been hugely rewarding for us is to look at the health indicators, not just in our livestock, but in our land. And when we go out, we're paying attention to the cows and how they look and how they're performing and all the things that you look at when you're trained to think about livestock, but we're also doing that on the ground too, and trying to figure out what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong, and how we can impact what we're seeing on the ground. So when I first sat down with Tony and we talked about some of the results that he'd seen, and he gave us concrete examples of what our productivity could be under holistic management, it was easy to get discouraged, and it still is easy to get discouraged and feel like we're not making progress quickly enough. And so what Dave and I found is we had to take small bites and just focus on one thing at a time. And for us, we would just choose one thing a year that we would say, okay, this is what we're going to get better at. And we had done some planned grazing, but it felt really overwhelming. We were coming back to a ranch that it had been managed under continuous grazing and relatively low stocking densities, but it had been continuously grazed for literally like 100 years. And so to rethink how we were going to do that was really challenging, and to run the cattle in a larger group. So we started out in year one, we had this idea based on our customer base that we wanted to stop using, or at least cut down on, our parasiticide use. That was something that was not, our customers didn't want us to use parasiticides. They had concerns about persistence in the meat. And so we decided that we just wanted to beat the parasite cycle. So we wanted to move more frequently than every 10 days. That's how we started. And then each year we have added more complexity into our planning. We've taken on more property, and we've learned about that property. I think a big breakthrough, we understood the concept of cattle as a tool, but I think until we started using them to try to get rid of some of the Medusa head rye we had on our place, we didn't fully understand what a great tool they could be. So patience, that comes through in my presentation a lot. I think when I think about holistic management, patience. In the very beginning, we saw such great results with very little sophistication in our planning. And I think now we're getting to a point where we're really going to have to get more sophisticated to continue seeing great results. And there's always that constraint of time. And so we try to always just be patient. Okay, we didn't do it right this year. We'll do it right next year. It's okay, you know. Data is one thing that we're working on. Right now, because one of the big things we're doing is focusing on the marketing part of our business. We pay a lot of attention to production data in our cattle, and we look at gains and gains on different types of species, gains at different times of the year, so that we can make sure that we have our grass-fed herd always on the gain. I want to keep refining that, but I think that what we're really going to focus on shortly is our biological, getting more biological data. So then I'm going to walk you through some projects that we've done, just to see how holistic management has influenced our thinking. And so water, obviously really critical when you're doing planned grazing. You can do a lot more paddocks when you have good water. This is kind of what we, when we came back to the ranch, this is some of the ponds that we were using. So this is what that pond looks like this year, where we've fenced it off and we've been able to plant. And so these are fun. We do cooperative work with Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. This is an example of cattle as a tool. We seeded the bank, and so we wanted a little animal impact to help get those seeds going. This is the prairie land. This is in 1915 when my great-grandfather first plowed it up. This is a couple years after we came back, and this is what it looks like today. So slow progress, but the meadows in front of our house when my great-grandfather managed it, and this is, we usually graze 150 yearlings on 1.5 acres per day. Again, a few years ago, this was cropped. This is what it looks like today. This is right behind our house. Again, cropped. And this is what it is today. This is our yearlings on the Medusa head rye. Had amazing results with this. We did a combination of spraying with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife and feeding. Feeding worked way better than spraying. I'm sure that won't shock a lot of people in this room. This is a couple different things going on here, but namely we had some old feedlots that we were trying to figure out what to do with. We didn't have any luck. There was too much nitrogen load to get perennial grasses established. So we've been continuing to crop them and using those guys to harvest the grain. We've also done a little bit of experimenting with goats. That's been pretty interesting. This is a biological monitoring site. This is huge progress for us. So we started biological monitoring in last fall. And I think this one is probably our biggest one in terms of lessons learned. I think that as we get better at planning and we see the results from planning, we will be more committed to doing it. Future plans is about planning. And I think generally having a philosophy and having a framework and having a support network that comes with holistic management has made ranching more rewarding for us. And it's given us permission to set goals, and those goals don't have to be the same as anybody else's, but it's allowed us to make decisions and work towards those. If anybody has questions, feel free to email me.
I'll have a chance to ask questions a little bit later.